I think, yeah, why don't we start?
Yeah,
Oscar?
that's
Right.
good. Good, Vijay. Good evening. On behalf of the World Trade Center and SAS, it's my privilege to welcome all of you for the webinar Finland, a global technology hub and gateway to European market. This is the third episode on the series WTC is doing jointly with SAS. As you are aware, India and Finland enjoy a dynamic commercial relationship with exports and imports, showing significant annual gains. Finnish companies are also participating in the rapidly growing Indian economy, while Indian information technology concerns are establishing their presence in Finland. It's a privilege to welcome the ambassador of Finland, Ms. Ritva Kokoyonde, as a keynote speaker. We also have Mr. Jukka Halapa, Commercial Counselor and Country Director, India, Business Finland, Mr. Lars Hedbris, Ms. Maria Carlson, Mr. Deepak Pataki, Mr. Kunal Pandya, and Mr. Alex Koshi. Mr. Vijay Kumar will be mentoring this session. He will be introducing in detail the faculty, the speakers too. With a few words, may I request Vijay to take it forward, please? Vijay?
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, both. At the outset, I would like to thank the ambassador for participating in this event. Indeed, from her from a CV, from a resume, I noticed that she's an extremely distinguished diplomat. Thank you very much for joining this webinar. We have today some very excellent speakers, and the theme of today's webinar is going to be about investing in Finland. Why Finland? Why invest in Finland? Finland is actually a great country. It's the happiest country in the world. Year after year, it's been voted the happiest country in the world. And besides that, if you go to see Finland by its location itself, it's very close to the northern European countries, as well as to Russia, and as well as to the some of the Eastern European countries. St. Petersburg is just a stone's throw from Helsinki. Moscow is not very far. Then you have the East European countries like Latvia, Estonia, Belarus, all of them, again, very close to Finland. And of course, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Netherlands, all of them. So actually, the Finland is located in a very advantageous position geographically, especially for those of us who want to, in India, who want to do business with Eastern European countries, with Russia, and with the Northern European countries. Uh, a lot of us, suddenly, when we think of Finland, for me at least, with my color of hair, the first thing that comes to mind is Vatsila. Vatsila has been here in India for so long, at least I think it must be at least 50 years. And Vatsila has been a very familiar name. And if you go to see again, my own apartment building here, I have a Kone elevator. So I am taken up and down every day by a Finnish company. There are a lot of very well-known Finnish companies, well established in India, renowned companies, many in the engineering field. Again, if you go to see, many of us may not be aware that there are so many well-known engineering companies. Of course, for almost, I think, maybe 90% of Indians, their first mobile phone was a Nokia. All of us started with a Nokia phone. It only then the other brands came and we went over to other phones. Again, coming back to Finland, again, Finland has a very unique achievement. It has the youngest woman prime minister, youngest prime minister ever, who is a woman and who leads a coalition of 5 parties who are all headed by women. That is something very unique in this world, and it's no wonder that Finland is such a happy country. And of course, we have the ambassador now, Finland ambassador to India, who's also a woman, also a very distinguished diplomat. So there are a lot of things that we can learn about Finland. And there's one thing what I would say, my attachment, if I may call it, to Finland, is that when I used to work for the Netherlands and every time I used to go to Schiphol Airport, I used to go to the chocolate shop there and buy Fazer chocolates. You know, Fazer chocolates, not only for me, but all my friends, my family, we all love the Fazer range of chocolates. Fazer Mint is my personal favorite. And when I came home, all my friends used to come home asking for the chocolate. Ambassador, Your Excellency, I think the best way to attract more Indian investment to Finland is to give everybody a box of Fazer chocolates. They are exquisite, they are wonderful. I really love them. You know, ending on this lovely, sweet, and chocolatey note, I'd now like to introduce our first speaker, the Finland ambassador to India, Her Excellency was Ritva Kukuronde. The ambassador is, as I said, an extremely distinguished having a diplomat, having worked myself for the Dutch government for 30 years. I can see that she's worked in some of the biggest countries. She's been ambassador to Germany, ambassador to United States of America, Under Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs, Director General of Department of Development Policy. She's been Finnish governor for the African Development Bank, Finnish governor for the Asian Development Bank. She's been even chairman of the board of the Institute of African Leadership for Sustainable Development. She has such wide-ranging experience and such an excellent resume. In fact, she's also has many honors to her credit. She's the commander of first class of the Order of the Lion of Finland, knight the first class of the Order of the Lion of Finland, as a commander of the Order of Orange Nassau. This I find a little strange because Ambassador, I myself was awarded the Knight of the Order of Orange Nassau by the Dutch government. You know, so it is a strange coincidence for me. So thank you very much for joining this webinar, and we are very happy to listen to your remarks on how India and Finland can work together in trade and investment. Thank you.
Dear Mr. Vice President Dr. Nair, dear Mr. Kumar, distinguished panelists, dear participants. First of all, let me thank warmly the co-host, World Trade Center, Bengaluru, Kochi and Chennai, SAS partner advisors and Business Finland for organizing this very timely event. And thank you, Mr. Kumar, for your very kind words. Indeed, I mean, we commanders are sharing some of the similarities. This was diplomats are always getting these sometimes, and I was serving also in the Netherlands and as a deputy head of mission somewhere in 90s. So it was a nice gesture of the Queen to grant this order to me when she was having official state visit 1995. Some of the listeners have not yet born, so it was some time ago already. It's a great pleasure for me to participate in this event. The COVID pandemic has caused misery and economic loss all over the world. But it has also given us a chance to find solutions to our biggest challenges, especially to those related to climate change and to sustainable economic, social and ecological development. The pandemic can be actually game changer in our actions answering to these global challenges. Let me say a few words about Indo-Finnish economic relations and about the possibilities of strengthening the trade and investment relations between Finland and India. Besides this Fazer chocolate, of course, I have something else. I think it's a good tip, so I will keep it in mind. India and Finland have always enjoyed warm and long-standing bilateral relations. We were one of the first to also recognize India, and actually our first resident embassy in the whole Asia was established in India after the Second World War, 1949. While India is one of the top 5 trade partners for Finland in South and Southeast Asia, Finland's ranking has been consistently progressing amongst India's EU trade partners. India and Finland have strengthened their relationship in the last decade with an annual bilateral trade of goods and services between the two countries crossing 2.1 billion euros, so meaning 2.5 billion US dollars. Despite of this positive trend, our trade figures are clearly below the potential, clearly below potential. In the beginning of the millennium, there were around 30 Finnish companies operating in the country, whereas today over 120 Finnish companies have operations in India, having set up manufacturing facilities, service centers, R&D centers, sales and marketing offices, generating employment in India. But again, these figures are very modest compared to corresponding figures in our trade, which, for example, with China. Many of the top Finnish enterprises are operating in India, including Nokia, Kone, Huhtamäki, Metso, Outotec, Wärtsilä was mentioned already, Cargotec, Konecranes, Fortum, and many more. Also, several large Indian companies such as TCS, Infosys, Wipro, Motherson Sumi Systems, and Mahindra have invested in active operations in Finland to the tune of more than $1 billion. However, here again, there is a lot of unused potential. Dear participants, Mr. Kumar mentioned quite rightly the location of Finland, the geographical location. If you look, we can be center of anything. And we, of course, self-believe that we are really center, we are hub of very many things. There has been direct flights before COVID, Finnair direct flights from New Delhi to Helsinki, takes about 6.5 hours, 7 hours, very, very good connections also to everywhere. And I was actually, my last trip in Finland in business promotion was last year, March, when I was discussing about the possibility with Finnair on strengthening the flights to some other locations than doing that. The business society include institutions, independent judicial system and respect for the rule of law, as progressive gender equality legislation. Therefore, in our economic development, men and women, boys and girls. Finland will remain one of the most pollution. Yes. I see you? Yes, I have. Could you confirm whether I have connection still with you, because I have some break here?
Yes, you are back, but there was some problem.
Not able to hear you.
Madam, can you please unmute yourself?
We're not able to hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. According to PMI research, Finland will remain one of the most politically stable countries globally during the forecast period 2016 to 2025. Finland's success story is becoming a highly industrialized, knowledge-based and innovative economy is based on free trade and openness to investment in the globalized economy. As a result, the Finnish business climate is very international and attractive to foreign investments. International companies benefit from Finland's reliable infrastructure, highly educated workforce, and ease of doing business. From energy supply to transport and ICT networks, Finland offers an outstanding infrastructure for businesses. Finland was forerunner in 5G technology in the world and is the first country to start 6G research. We also have some surprising infrastructure advantages, such as a stable rock-based ground formation and cool weather that are ideal elements for establishing data centers. Finland's workforce is exceptionally well educated and experienced and known for its high level of productivity and commitment. Actually, did you know that Finland has the second most skilled workforce in the world, according to the World Economic Forum Global Competitiveness Report 2019? In international comparison, Finnish labor costs are competitive in relation to the employees' level of education and experience, and thus to the quality and quantity of output. Finland is among the countries with the best human per capita index in the world in terms of education, well-being and employment. And it's no wonder that we have also the happiest country in the world, like already Mr. Kumar was mentioning. Thank you for mentioning that as well. Finland ranks among the world top 10 countries in terms of patented inventions per capita. We like these figures. If you want more, there is the Finnish Bureau of Statistics, and they have very good websites, so you have there the whole list. Knowledge transfer between companies and universities is a key factor in Finland's innovation and economic success. There is a strong collaboration between Finnish industries, research institutions, universities and the government, with a proven track record of delivering disruptive technologies and innovative design. Finland is also a trusted R&D location and offers an excellent R&D and testing environment for new products, production methods, processes of technologies. Indian companies can take advantage of a competent and experienced workforce, lower employee costs, Finnish innovation capabilities, and a world-class R&D and startup ecosystem by investing and setting up their businesses in Finland. Key sectors that provide significant advantages to foreign investors are ICT, where Finland is known for its AI, cybersecurity, quantum computing, gaming, connected mobility, and wireless connectivity capabilities. Finnish companies have always been at the global forefront in clean technologies, amongst others focusing on a bio-circular economy, including renewable energy. Finland has very ambitious climate targets. By 2030, we are committed to increase the share of renewable energy above 50%. Finland will be the world's first fossil-free welfare state and carbon neutral by 2035. Finland provides ample opportunities for foreign investors, supported by guidance provided by Business Finland and regional development agencies to find suitable opportunities and promote informed decision-making. We operate as Team Finland, which consists of the Embassy, Business Finland and FinCham, Finnish Indian Chamber of Commerce. Also, our 4 honorary consuls in Mumbai, Kolkata, Chennai and Bengaluru are active promoters of the Indo-Finnish economic relations. We continue to be active during COVID time, mainly in this virtual world, and are able also to organize virtual visits to Finland to you. And of course, we are looking very much forward also post-COVID period that we can see you all face to face and do businesses also face to face. It is our role and great pleasure to help you all to explore and enter Finland. Please do not hesitate to contact us. I'm looking forward to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. You gave us a very good picture of Finland and why we should come to Finland. I'll just give you one reason why, why a lot of Indians will flock to Finland. If you can just ask Carl Fraser to bring their chocolates to India, we'd be more than happy to bring Indian companies to Finland. Thank you. Thanks very much.
I will do that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Now we shall go on to the next speaker. We shall have the technical sessions. Next, I'd just like I headed the Trade and Investment Office for South India. I'm now an advisor with SAS Partners. SAS Partners, for those of you who are not aware of it, is a corporate advisory organization and a multidisciplinary organization providing business, legal, financial, and economic advisory services to Indian and foreign multinational corporations. Thank you. I now invite Mr. Jukka Holappa. He's the Commercial Counselor and Country Director, India for Business Finland. Dr. Jukka Holappa is a pharmaceutical professional with R&D, regulatory, business development, in and out licensing and retail experience. He has an extensive career in the healthcare industry, and he now heads Business Finland in India. He is responsible for Export Finland, Invest in Finland, Visit Finland, and innovation funding activities. Over to you, Mr. Holappa.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction. Can you hear me and can you see my screen as well?
Very clear.
Cool. I think, Mr. Moderator, you missed 3 very important points when introducing me. I'm a husband, I'm a father, and above all, I'm a salesman. I'm a salesman from Finland, so this is where I'm coming from. So good afternoon all. It's so cool to see so many participants here today, more than 100. It was 120 something. So happy, thanks for joining. We are all suffering from this coma of webinars, so let's try to make this a bit more interesting. It's always very difficult to talk after ambassador, but I try to do my best. Special thanks to SAS Partners, World Trade Center for organizing this, and thank you so much for the fellow speakers as well. Ambassador, of course, Lars, Maria, Deepak, Kunal, Markus also. So my name is Jukka, and my role is that I look after Business Finland operations here in India. We have 5 mandates, very unique governmental organization with 5 mandates. Number 1, export promotion. So it's our role to help Finnish companies come here. And we also work with the established ones that we have been discussing here as well, whether it's Nokia or Kone or Wärtsilä, etc. But export promotion, number 1. Number 2, we are the invest in arm for Finland. So it's our role to attract foreign direct investments to Finland. What makes us unique is number 3, that we also are the funding agency for innovation and R&D in Finland. Our typical annual funding budget is 600 million euros. Last year, we got extra 1.1 billion euros from the Finnish government to COVID. So last year, we injected about 1.7 billion euros to the Finnish innovation ecosystem as grants and loans. We don't take any equity. Number 4, we also manage the tourism board of Finland called Visit Finland, and then our newest mandate, which is actually quite big as well, is that we are attracting talent to Finland, whether it's individual experts or best possible global startup teams. The combination makes us unique. We know the ecosystem because we are the entity that is driving the innovation, which is funding the innovation as well. So when you guys are exploring Finland, compared to other investment promotion organizations, which are good, but we are excellent because of this combination, because we can help you to identify the right partners, whether those are kind of large companies, again, what we have discussed, whether those are SMEs, whether those are startups or universities. We know them inside out because we fund them as well. Our services are free of cost. That is also very unique. As Ambassador mentioned, there's a long list of number ones, and we love these numbers. Most innovative country in the world, best education system, willingness to adopt latest technologies. I will not spend more time with these, because I want to spend some time explaining where we are seeing the most traction from India towards Finland. What are the sectors where Indian companies find most interesting, the coolest things happening in Finland? I've been doing this for 4 years, so I have a fairly good understanding what sells here and what doesn't. And what are also the sectors which are interesting in India, and also where there's something in Finland that we can offer. Number one is 5G, clearly. Both Wipro and Tech Mahindra have disclosed that they are setting up 5G innovation centers to Finland. So 5G is number one. And actually, it's not only 5G. In Finland, we are working on 6G, as Ambassador also pointed out. We organized the first global 6G conference 2 years ago already, and our government has allocated 250 million euros to the 6G spearhead research project led by the University of Oulu in the northern part of Finland. By the way, the best radio technology university in the world. We are seeing more and more companies participating into these 6G initiatives as well. And the other areas that I want to highlight, again, I'm kind of repeating what the ambassador said, but as an old salesman, it's all about repeating stuff. Sustainability, this is very high in Finland's agenda and across industries. And there's a lot that India and Finland could do together. And it's always surprising to me that, you know, when I discuss, for example, with IT companies globally, not only the Indian small IT companies or large IT companies, but globally regarding Finland, sustainability nowadays comes on top. What could we do around sustainability? Education, of course, since we have the best education system in the world. Other topics, AI. Well, everybody, all the countries are working on AI, but there are certain verticals in Finland that we are very, very good. Clean energy solutions. Everybody's talking about cloud nowadays, but already before COVID, Finland and Finnish corporations were number one in Europe, at least when it comes to cloud adoption. Cybersecurity, especially interesting when cybersecurity is combined with 5G and 6G with our mobile know-how. Finland is a global hub for data centers, as Ambassador also mentioned. Health technology, huge opportunity here as well, since India is keen on ramping up the industry. India is a pharma powerhouse, and it will be a powerhouse in the medical technology, and this is an area that we should work on together. Last but not least, quantum computing. We have been the global leader in superconducting R&D since late 1960s. And now we are a global leader in quantum computing hardware. Huge opportunity here when we combine the Indian software know-how to the Finnish quantum computing hardware know-how. As mentioned, our strength, by us, I mean Business Finland, the embassy, the team Finland that is kind of serving you. our strength is we know the best players with who you should discuss with. We can structure your visit. During the COVID times, we can structure your virtual visit to meet these players, best players in these different areas. One thing worth mentioning is that we have a most vibrant startup ecosystem in the world. Startup funding per capita is highest in the world. Finnish startups are raising money, but also there are exits taking place more than anywhere else in the world. So many cool things. But what do you think? What is the biggest reason why you should come to Finland? What is the single biggest reason? Is it because of these unique Finnish companies that you know within gaming, within cybersecurity, within measuring health? Is it that? I don't think it's that. I will tell you a secret what it is. It's because everybody else is there. They just don't tell it to you. We have seen an invasion of European companies coming to Finland to set up R&D site. Lots of logos. To mention a few, Ericsson. There's this fight between Finland and Sweden and Ericsson and Nokia, but even Ericsson thinks that the Finnish cybersecurity know-how is so good that they are doing cybersecurity R&D in Finland. Another good example, Zalando. There on the right-hand column, on the bottom there, which is like the Flipkart of Europe, e-commerce giant from Germany. They have a big chunk of their mobile and AR R&D in Finland. There's a long list of American companies as well. Google operating their largest data center outside US in Finland. GE Healthcare doing a lot of wireless R&D in Finland. We have some Indian logos as well, large companies showing the way. Mahindra having multiple investments already. So great to have Deepak from Infosys here telling the Infosys story. Many mid-sized technology companies as well. Great to have Kunal from Encrypted here as well today to tell their stories, because you really don't want to hear from, at least from a boring governmental guy from me. You want to hear from the companies who have made the decision. To kind of sum up the reasons very briefly, it's the ecosystem, the most unique ecosystem in the world, where startups, SMEs, large companies, multinational companies, academia work together, and which we as government are supporting and funding. Access to Nordic markets, when you combine Finnish, Swedish, Norwegian, Danish markets, it's actually a size of an Indian market. So there's a big market. Good place to access the European markets. Why go to Germany or these big 5 markets? Why not come through Finland? This is something what the Indian pharma companies did late 90s, early this century or this millennium. They got their first regulatory approvals from Finland. They got the Finnish regulatory stamp, which is so much appreciated throughout Europe. So think about getting your regulatory stamp from the Finnish medical authorities or other authorities. Of course, access to innovation, access to multinational companies. I left out the funding intentionally here because that should not be the driver. If you have nothing else to offer, then you will give perks. Then you will talk about the funding. And then you will talk about the tax benefits, etc. If you have if you have innovative operations in Finland, there are various funding sources available as well. But I wanted to leave funding out from this. My final slide. Here's my contact information. You can just contact me anytime. Please stay safe. Try to work from home if possible. Not all of us can work from home. There's the most famous Finn there in the picture. And as you know, he is one of the Finns that cannot work from home. He has to go around. Over to moderator. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Holappa. Yeah, indeed, thanks very much for breaking the ice. I hope next time you're in Chennai, we'll break the ice with some Finlandia vodka. Yeah, looking forward to that.
Done. Agreed.
Yeah. Great, wonderful. Thank you. And thank you for letting us on into the secrets which we were not aware of. Thankfully, they were not diplomatic secrets, so you were not censored. Everybody heard you. Thank you very much. We are going to hear from Mr. Lars Hagebris. Lars Hagebris is the Director, International Operations, Invest in Finland, Business Finland. Mr. Hagebris brings 25 years of international sales experience, both from large enterprises and startups. Prior to joining Business Finland, he was leading 2 startups with international sales. He headed the enterprise sales at Orange Business Services in the Nordics and has had various global positions with Ericsson. He brings with him business experience not only from Europe and the US, but has also spent many years in Asia. Mr. Hagebris holds a Master of Science in Industrial Engineering and Management from Linköping Institute of Technology. Over to you, Mr. Hagebris.
Thank you very much for this kind introduction, and thank you very much for inviting me here to this seminar. I will share my presentation here. And I will make it a little bit bigger. So, can you see my presentation clearly and good?
Yes, very clear. Thank you.
Thank you. So, I am happy to talk about Finland as a global technology hub and a gateway to the European market. And I was thinking a lot where to start this presentation. And the thing that is very close to me, and you've heard it also from Finland's ambassador and Jukka here, about Finland and the relation to innovation. Innovation is key to it's a main source for sustainable growth. It has a big importance. There were Professor Matti Pohjola from Aalto University. He says that the economy growth from ideas, education, and fixed investments. However, 2/3 of the growth has resulted from ideas and 1/3 from education, and the role of fixed investment has been quite minimal. And also from EU, we see that when it comes to innovations, 96% of the innovations are actually born in ecosystems. So this is something to think about, how to become an innovative country when it comes to be very competitive on the global arena. And also what is very interesting is that the Confederation of Finnish Industry, they made a research some 2 years ago and found out that every 3rd student in high school and upper comprehensive school could see themselves being an entrepreneur in the future. And when that research measurement was made 10 years ago, the equivalent was about 1%. So something very unique has happened in Finland, and there is a much positive view on entrepreneurship, startups, and the media is writing very positive of this and the impact of risk capital into this kind of front edge technology companies. So with that introduction, I would like to continue to talk a little bit more about Finland as a solid innovation platform. I will talk a little bit about the startup movement, come in a little bit to the global technology hub and the gateway to the European market. And then let's see if we can make some conclusion of this. I'm pretty sure we can. Starting up, Finland, yeah. We heard a lot about it, the population, it's a Euro country, it's a multi-language country. The corporate tax is one of the lowest in Europe, 20%, and we've heard several times about how happy we are in Finland. And if you come to Finland, you should also take the opportunity to take a sauna and maybe some swim in the icy water. Coming back to business. The solid innovation platform. Well, we heard about the innovation that Finland is ranked as one of the most innovative countries in the world, both from the global perspective by Bloomberg, but also last year and previous year, Finland was number 1 and 2 when it comes to innovation within European community. There is also a very vibrant startup scene with like a little bit Silicon Valley inspired business culture. And something which I think is unique in Finland is a little bit how people approach problem. They're there to solve problem and look into solutions to make things much better than before. We heard about the highly educated people, but also I would like to mention that Finland is always eager to test new technology. It's a very perfect test bed for global solutions. I mean, we're one of the first that did internet banking and things like that. So early adopters you find good in Finland. We talked about the gaming industry, like the unicorns we have created, like Supercell and Rovio. And also interesting, if you look at, there's always a small competition up in the Nordics there. And Finland actually addressed 57% of all foreign direct investment projects that was initiated in 2018. It's a little bit old figures, but it was not available for 20. And this is a little bit also tells a lot about the climate and the business environment in Finland. And also we heard a little bit about that. It's very good in attracting VC investment. We need a lot of risk capital into Finland to keep this huge amount of entrepreneurs and startup companies growing. And we have been doing that very nicely. Slush, you see on this picture, it's one of the big events in Europe where we actually combine entrepreneurs, startups, investors, advisors together. It's a meltdown pot and a lot of good, interesting things come out of it. It's not the only event. We have Arctic 15 and Polar Bear pitching event also for companies to look into funding. The Finnish startup movement, I would say it's a very systematic approach, and it started, you can say, after the financial crisis 2008, 2009, and we were thinking, how can we make it better for the future? How can we make young people want to take the future in the hand and make something good out of it? So what happened then in a very structured way that we saw a lot of incubators, accelerators coming up. We invested a lot in education. We talked a little bit about the innovation funding and these 600 million that Business Finland, for instance, do, but there are others funding as well for these companies. And then I also would like to mention Nokia Mobile. And Nokia Mobile is you need to keep apart Nokia Mobile with Nokia Systems. So it was Nokia Mobile that actually was acquired by Microsoft, and then it was discontinued. But during these days, Nokia Mobile has a unique position in Finland. There were 1,000 companies around Nokia doing technology development, entrepreneurship, securing the top edge technology in this one. So the culture of working in ecosystems with different companies is really, really unique. We heard the ambassador talk a little bit about the efficient research collaboration between research institute, corporations, and startups. It's very, very close discussions between these companies. And then we have the big events that I'm talked about also. Moving on. Cost is of course important when you start up a development center. If you look upon the European market, I would say that Finland stands very, very good when it comes to the cost perspective, setting up a software development center, for instance. maybe even more important is when we come to the digitalization. Many countries are working a lot and spending a lot of effort and time on the digitalization. And Finland is the one that has the highest society index 2020. So when it comes to digitalization, Finland is doing extremely well. There are so many good examples around the healthcare, how we have digitalized. I mean, Helsinki University Hospital have digitalized all the data there and made it available through different legislation. So it's a little bit a one-stop shop for R&D companies to come in and utilize all biobanks and health data records for research, which is unique, I would say. So digitalization, very well advanced in Finland. So coming to the technology hub, there's so much things I would like to cover here, so I needed to select a couple of things to focus on. And well, first of all, we talk about different areas. We heard Jukka talk a little bit about it before. Maybe the four main areas are within bio and circular economy. If you think about it, Finland is a forest country. 10 years ago, we did a lot of paper, we had a lot of paper mills doing boxes in paper and things like that. Now that kind of industry is changed into biofuels, biomaterial, huge change taking place in 10 years and very advanced at the moment. We have the health tech with the digitalization. We talked a little bit about clean tech. I will come back and focus a little bit more about clean tech and the battery, which is a very hot topic in today's society. And then, of course, ICT and digitalization is maybe the strong power coming out of Finland. Travel and consumer, to mention, to make the big picture. But to do a little bit of a deep dive into this when it comes to opportunities, where do we think Indian companies could come to Finland and actually take big advantage of the things that we have there? I would like to start to mention smart mobility. Finland is maybe not known as a country that develops cars and things like that, and that's absolutely correct. But now when we look at next generation cars, the electric vehicles, smart automotive, and I'm talking more about the autonomous driving, the electrification, the connected services, the security, so you cannot hijack a car that is a self-driving. We already today have self-driving buses on the street, and we also have this mobile mass solution where you can buy a ticket and then you can move around with that ticket in different means, buses, taxis, and so on. And also to add on top of that one is actually the smart maritime. There is a very interesting project that has been ongoing for a couple of years called 1C. 1C has an ambition to put the first self-driving ship by 2025 on the sea. And what has happened there is that we have created an ecosystem where Business Finland put in some money to orchestrate the ecosystem. And then you have all key companies, big and small, joining into that ecosystem to be part to make a good solution for autonomous ships by 2025. Others, we have heard a lot about the 5G and also that we're already looking into 6G. But at least what is important with 5G is that the test beds are there. There is a lot of solutions and applications that can be run on top of 5G. And this is where we actually welcome companies to take part of this big advantage. IoT, we should not forget. Just one example, there's a big German company who works with preventive maintenance, and they are putting IoT devices on machines to check when it's time for maintenance and things like that. And they took their solution and created a solution center in Finland and used existing players and ecosystem partners in creating a solution. And by that, they saved a lot of time to market and saved cost to bring this there. We also heard a little bit about data centers. And there we have a number of ready-to-go data centers. You know that Google has one of the biggest data centers in Finland, in Kotka-Hamina. It's a good place to have data centers, a little bit in the same way to have battery factories, because the electricity is relatively cheap there, and the access to cooling water and space is there also. So data centers is very common to place there, and there's a good opportunities for that. Of course, there's much more within the digitalization side, but I would just like to leave this picture with you. And when you get the presentation, you will find the links also, so you can find what is good there. There's more information to find. There's a very nice web page where you can find test beds and things like that, called Future Mobility of Finland, and how we should actually work for this target of 1.5 degree world. But also all the solutions can be found on a web page. But there's one thing I would like to add specifically also, which is a little bit unique, and that is called Allied ICT. Allied ICT is the largest, what we say, take the research to market. It's a huge network. So what it really is that there's a number of universities in Finland cooperating together with a whole bunch of companies, high-tech companies, big and small. And if a company would say, I have an idea and I cannot do it myself, but I would like to take it from an idea to the market, then there's a one-stop shop where you can get this in and make this happen. So have a look on Allied ICT, and I would be happy to talk more about it. But also here you have the links when you get the presentation, so you can get a little bit further information about it. Moving over to the other area I would like to talk a little bit more about, and that is the clean tech area. Yes, you will find a lot of activities around renewable energy. There's a lot of parks being built up, a lot of knowledge being built up with energy storage as well, the smart energy, the hydrogen with fuel cells. But one thing that is really interesting now in Finland is, of course, the battery value chain. And why is that so interesting? Well, you all know that we need to change the way of living and how to the cars, the automotive industries, and get down the carbon footprint. And batteries are needed a lot. And there's a lot of batteries companies now, really gigafactories being built up in the Nordics. And Finland have all the competences, but we open up for more to join this kind of activities in Finland. I mean, you have the materials, the active materials to build the batteries. You have the batteries for assembling the cells. You have to build applications around it, maybe how to reuse it and recycling. And the interesting things, we have actually the mines as well when it comes to cobalt and lithium. And then the whole research that is needed around this to really be on the top there. And this is something I would like to push a little bit for, because we hope to see a number of players more coming in to join this excellent network of batteries. And when I talked to Northvolt, who developed a battery factory, they said that this is the best place in the world to develop battery factories here in the Nordics, because if you want to have low cost and green energy and low carbon footprint, this is a very nice place to do it. It has been flashed in media. Omnicore made an acquisition for cobalt refining. BASF from Finland, from Germany, took a position to be very good on the battery materials, the active materials I talked about. Valmet are doing battery assembly and so on. And there are more opportunities, and we really would welcome actors within this domain. Yeah, that's good. Finland then, as a gateway to the European market. Well, this is interesting. I mean, you can draw a map in any way you want. And when we draw the map, always Finland comes in the center. So it's equally this long distance to the US market and to the Asia. But the good thing is actually there are very good communication from Finland to the Asian markets and to India. And maybe more important, I would say, is probably that setting up an office or a European headquarter, in Finland will provide you access not only to the Finnish market and the Nordic market, but also the European market, also getting into the Russian St. Petersburg market. So it's a good place to be for a company who wanted to address the European market and get inside the Schengen and the EU, so to say. Coming to an end. Yes. So what should you remember of what I've talked about today? Well, I would say that I think it's mentioned several times today that innovation is a little bit the main source for sustainable growth, and they are born in ecosystems where we're good at. Finland have been mentioned now. It's a very nice place for innovation, top ranked in many ways, and it's a very nice way to enter the Finnish market. So by that, I would like to thank you very much for taking the time to listen, and I would like to hand it back to the moderator here. Thank you for this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hagebis. Indeed, it was a very interesting presentation. You told us about innovative Finland, you told us about entrepreneurial Finland, you told us about smart Finland, you told us about digital Finland, and you also told us about the smart startup Finland. So in fact, you covered a wide range of subjects, all of which are of great interest here, especially in India, because innovation is a great topic here. So is startups, and so are a number of other things which you talked about, the digital aspects and so on. Yes, it was indeed very interesting. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much.
Lovely presentation. Yes. Our next presentation will be on the legal aspects of investing in Finland by a Finnish company called Bird & Bird. We have two people from Bird & Bird who will speak today. One is Ms. Maria Carlson, who's partner, head of corporate Finland. She has in-depth experience of complex mergers and acquisitions, transactions, and corporate and commercial work. She has specialized in M&A and has over 15 years of experience in structuring and negotiating complex transactions with a focus on private M&A deals, both inbound and outbound, and cross-border work. In addition to the M&A, she has long-standing experience in strategy contracting, advising clients on matters including joint ventures and cooperation contracts. She is a member of the Finnish Bar Association Transport and Traffic Law Expert Group. Indeed, that is a very excellent credentials. Then we have Mr. Marcus Kravinen. Mr. Kravinen works as an associate in Bird & Bird in the corporate and M&A group in Helsinki, where he advises domestic and international clients on various transactions and financing arrangements, as well as corporate and contractual law-related assignments. Before joining Bird & Bird, Mr. Kravinen worked as a legal counsel in a major international law firm in Helsinki. Over to you, Ms. Carlson and Mr. Kravinen.
Thank you very much for the presentation, and a big thank you to especially Mr. Lars Hagebis and Jukka as well for inviting us to this. So it's an honor to be here. Thank you also for the great presentations. I think what I wanted to say starting off is welcome to the boring part of today. So we are lawyers. We will try to keep it simple and sort of visual, but we are not very good at keeping things very sort of, we are fascinated by the details and by language and by the law. So apologies in advance for this. But as was mentioned, I think Bird & Bird as a firm, we are an international firm. So we have 30 offices or 30 firms around the globe. We are mostly based in Europe, but also in Asia. We have a presence in China, in Singapore, in Sydney, for instance. And recently, we have also found our way to Silicon Valley. So we have an office in San Francisco as well. But here in the Nordics, we are quite a clear community here. So Finland is our biggest office here in the Nordics. We also have 2 other offices in Stockholm and also in Copenhagen. So we pride ourselves on giving our clients, let's say, the full Nordic experience as well. And we're able to open doors in all of these jurisdictions. Maybe shortly as well about Bird & Bird as a firm, we have special expertise in several sectors. The biggest sector we have is the tech and comms sector. And here it warmed my heart to hear about the smart mobility side that Lars was mentioning as well, as this is one of the things that we specialize in here as well in Helsinki and Finland. So we see and we work a lot with this ecosystem. We have been involved very much in mobility as a service, for instance, also in self-driving cars, self-driving boat technology, and so forth. So both, let's say, on an investment side and also on a general corporate advisory side, that is something that we follow very specifically. Also clean tech, also the energy and let's say the clean energy and the biofuel side. Very interesting, lots of things happening here that we see. Health tech as well, so things like wearables, for instance, very, very much happening in this field, and very, very interesting developments in investments, green fields as well, lots going on in this field. So although we are lawyers, we are the ones normally establishing the companies. We are the ones, let's say, advising the companies when it comes to things like regulation in Finland, employment law, how to set up that establishment, how to get everything off the ground when it comes to the tax office, when it comes to registrations and so forth. We also advise in investments, so investments into the country, be it, let's say, round investments or M&A as well. So that's maybe a little bit about the firm, and obviously, yes, in our areas of focus, we are very excited. We see ourselves, we have a disruption strategy. We are one of the most, let's say, future-oriented law firms in Finland. And we also hope that our clients see us as a little bit less conservative than some of our counterparts. In other words, in order to be able to really address the concerns and speak to and open doors to our clients active in the innovation sector more largely, we also need to be able to be a little bit innovative ourselves. Although I do know this is sort of something that you would typically maybe not expect firsthand from your good lawyers. So that very shortly about us. And when it comes to our clients, as an integrated international firm, we work very much with international clients looking at Finland. Also, of course, with Finnish companies working from here and expanding internationally. We work with bigger corporations, but we also work with the startup and growth company field. So for instance, in Slush, the event that Lars was mentioning, which is the major, let's say, startup growth company event across the Nordics. Sadly, this year, due to the epidemic, it was not arranged in person. We hope to see that next year again in autumn. So very welcome there if you do have your ways around. We believe in regard of this that maybe one of the roles of a law firm as well when it comes to our international clients is not only to do the paperwork, which is of course the first thing that we do, but also to open doors, especially when it comes to international investment. We are active as well, and myself, for instance, I'll be working on a steering group level with Business Finland and also with Invest in Finland. So we do work lots as well on the governmental level. We do constantly work with the ministries here in Finland, and we pride ourselves in being able to open doors for you and engage and basically open up discussions where there's a need, for instance, to partner, to do cooperation, negotiations, maybe thinking about a joint venture as well. And let's say during the last years, we have seen more and more I think we heard about the ecosystem thinking, and we really see this in our legal work as well. So instead of, let's say, just or standard investments, so money coming in, know-how coming in, greenfield investments into Finland, we also see a high level of cooperation. And there's a lot of ecosystems. Lars mentioned, for instance, the smart mobility sector. There are many other sectors like this. So there is more of a partnering. Partly it has to do, of course, with things like very big projects, let's say very big infrastructure projects. Let's talk about smart infrastructure, for instance, need a lot of investment to be able to really run. So maybe before there was one party thinking about these things and the governmental authority. Now there are multiple industrials from very different paths. So you have innovative entities in the startup field. You have established corporations that bring to the table their R&D, more broadly speaking, and their capacity and their knowledge in this field. We have the governmental entities, especially in Finland, as you know, who are able to assist with opening those doors as well, who are able to assist with funding and with basically putting these things together. And we see that there's a lot to be gained from that. So, but that is as a very short introduction. I think when it comes to Finland, we heard from Jukka and from Lars as well, maybe not so much more about this, but thinking about the legal aspects, it is indeed a welcoming environment. So if you think about establishing a company in Finland, it is very easy. And my colleague, Markus Karvinen, who will talk you through a little bit more of the specifics in this field, he will also be able to tell you that this is something that you can actually do online nowadays. We are a very digital economy, and it is made very easy for you. We have a lot of different forms of establishment, as any economy has, but there is very clearly a preference for what you call the OY, so the limited liability company. It has many benefits over the other entities, the establishment forms, and that's maybe the easiest thing that we would recommend on day one. Of course, we have clients who come in as branches as well, which means that they are the head company, and then they do their sales, they do their R&D, they have a look at Finland as a country. But due to mandatory law in the spheres of employment, of tax, for instance, it can get a little bit tricky sometimes. So it's actually going in and establishing a limited liability company is often the easiest solution. I already mentioned the thriving innovation community, and here as well, let's say the Nokia cluster and the mobile cluster is something that I, during more than 20 years of experience, I've seen that one flow as well. And it is indeed sort of a basis for how we think here. But a lot has happened since then, and now we have many different ecosystems when it comes to innovation. I think, as was mentioned as well here in the beginning, we are an EU country and we follow the civil law system. So as opposed to the common law system, the civil law system is based on French Germanic law, which in a nutshell means that we have less case law and we have more statutes. So we have binding legislation. We basically have written legislation on most things. I can have a long conversation about what is better, but I would say what this may be the benefit that a civil law system brings when it comes to investments into the country, when it comes to establishing yourselves as a company in Finland, is stability. So through the civil law system, you will know how to do certain things. The law can, of course, be changed, and it is changed, but it is still comprised into statute form. So it is maybe a little bit more difficult to see any very quick movements as you get in a common law system, which is judgment based. So you get your cases, and then the whole doctrine starts changing. So that, in a nutshell, about the legal system. When it comes to mandatory law, and we will speak a little bit about that. Marcus will speak about that shortly too as well. When it comes to mandatory law and foreign investment, there are no big impediments. So we are a very, very friendly country from a legal standpoint to invest in, to establish in, to make a greenfield in. As mentioned, there is both the innovation aid side, but there is also, for instance, not a lot of restrictions when it comes to establishing that company or even buying land, making investments into the country. So yes, we do have certain FDI controls which come from EU level, but we are nowhere near what we see in the US when it comes to the CFIUS regulation, for instance. So it is not as strict, and it tends to be quite, how should I say, it tends to be quite business first. So even in this respect, it is quite easy to come and establish yourself here. This being said, mandatory law is something, incorporation is the first step. So just making sure you have the entity, but then moving into employment, moving into tax, moving into things like the GDPR, so data protections in the EU. These are all mandatory areas of regulation that we advise on very frequently. And although it is a jungle, legal regulation always is, we do like to believe that in Finland, we tend to be quite practical when it comes to these things. And also when it comes to employment regulation, if you compare Finland to, for instance, France in the EU, Finnish employment regulation is much less strict. So yes, we have these mandatory areas, but it is something that we are very happy to guide you across. Without further ado, very happy to have a discussion and a conversation. Please feel free to contact us. You have our information as well by email at the end of this presentation. And also very happy to, let's say, have a sparring discussion with you if you're considering incorporation in Finland. So happy to help, happy to open doors. And thank you again for being here. And over to my colleague, Markus.
Great. Hi, I hope you can hear me, and thank you from my behalf as well. And as stated previously, my name is Markus Karvinen, and I work as an associate here at Bird & Bird. And I'm here to tell you about the highlight key aspects related to establishment of an entity in Finland. And as stated by Maria, the limited liability company or osakeyhtiö, Oy, in Finnish is the most common form of establishment, and the branch is one of other common form, and the main principles related thereto are that the Oy is a separate legal entity, and the branch is not a separate legal entity as it's a part of the foreign mother entity. And if you are having a separate legal entity in Finland, it has many benefits, including the possibility to receive Business Finland grants and other public funding. And one of the main reasons to choose Oy is that the shareholders are not personally liable for the liabilities of the company. And as the liability of shareholders is limited only to the payment of the subscription price of the shares, in other words, share capital. And nowadays it's possible to set up an Oy without any share capital, so the liability of shareholders is quite low. And the Oy may be registered online as stated by Maria, and it speeds up the registration process. However, it is possible to register physically as well. In such events, it must be noted that the registration fees are lower if done by online. And Oy is legally established when it has been registered with the Finnish Trade Register, and it takes approximately 14 working days. But if you do it online, it's much faster. So there are many perks of doing it online. Then one of the main points related to the management of an OÜ is that the members of the board of directors or the managing director do not need to be Finnish nationals. However, it should be noted that at least one member of the board of directors should be a resident within the European Economic Area if you do not want to apply for a separate permit for all of the board of directors. And in other words, if there is one member, you don't need to separate permit, and if, let's say, all of the board members are from outside of European Economic Area, you need to apply a separate permit for each and every member of the board of directors. And the same principle applies to the managing director. In other words, he or she must be a resident of the European Economic Area. Otherwise, a separate permit is required. And this permit fees related thereto are 120 euros per person applied. And if you have 3 board members, it's 360 euros per in total. And then we have a tax regulation, and I would like to give a disclaimer that the tax regulation is a whole another world. So the tax regulation needs to be reviewed on a case-by-case basis. But we have a few highlight points that applies to in all of situations basically. And these are payroll taxation. And as an employer, an OÜ is obligated to pay withholding tax from salaries paid, which is based on progressive taxation, and as well as to pay tax and employers' social security contributions to the tax authorities. And these social security contributions are basically approximately little over 20% of each employee's salaries. And employees from foreign countries are taxed on income earned within Finland. However, Finland has several tax treaties in order to avoid any international double taxation. And for example, Finland and India has a valid tax treaty between of them. And corporate taxation, there is the main point that the tax rate of a limited liability company is 20% in 2021. And in case of a branch, the country of residence of the mother company will levy taxes on the total income. And the double taxation is eliminated in the country of residence of the company by crediting the company in full for the tax paid in Finland. So double taxation is dealt by it. And then related to the registrations with the Finnish tax authority, you may apply to the relevant registers in connection with the establishment of a company. And the registers contain VAT register, prepayment register, and register of employers. And obviously, you don't have to apply to each register. For example, if you do not employ, you don't have any employees, you don't have to apply to the register of employers. Then to the employment regulation and immigration. We have quite many mandatory laws related to the employment, and maybe the main law is the Employment Contract Act, which contain the most of the relationship between employer and employee. And there are provisions in respect of how to fire people, the obligations of an employer, the obligations of an employee. And in addition to the Employment Contracts Act, the employers must also comply with other legislation such as Working Time Act, Annual Holidays Act, and Act on Cooperations within Undertakings. And in Finland, the employment contracts are usually quite broad and cover the general obligations of the employee, working hours, annual leave, health and safety, and the employer's responsibility to pay salary. And for example, usually the employment contracts contain a provision in respect of employers' right to read employees' email, as it's not automatically employers' right here in Finland. Related to the wages in Finland, there are no minimum wages. However, collective agreements set minimum rates for most of the workforce. For example, minimum monthly wage in commercial sector and technology industry is approximately between 1,500 and 1,700 euros per month. And one important note is that before a company may act as an employer, it has to enter into agreements with external service providers regarding occupational healthcare, employment pension insurance, and occupational accident insurance. And then due to required permits, and please note that these permits are not the same as previously stated in respect of the management of an OÜ, as those management of OÜ permits are applied from Finnish Trade Register, and these immigration related permits are applied from Finnish Immigration Service. And usually foreign employees from outside the European Economic Area need a work permit to work in Finland, and non-European Economic Area citizens must apply for a work permit generally before arriving in Finland. There are verification between the permits, and some permits contain the right to work as per the moment you arrive in Finland, but it's a case-by-case review on there. And the process time depends on the permit type, and please note that there are several permits, approximately a little over 20. But we have here two examples. Resident permit application for an employed person takes approximately 1 to 4 months, and a resident permit application for a person employed as a specialist takes approximately 1 to 2 months. But these times as well vary, especially due to COVID, and it's good to commence the process well in advance before arriving in Finland, starting working. For example, 1 day before you start to work, it's impossible to get the required permit. And as an employer, you are obligated to ensure that each employee have all the relevant permits to work in Finland. Yes, that's in a nutshell. I think we are almost, we are only a little over our time. So please don't hesitate to contact us if you have any questions related to the matter. Here are our contact details, and thank you from my behalf. Over
Thank you very
to
much,
moderator.
Ms. Carlson and Mr. Karvinen. It was indeed a very interesting presentation. We learned a lot about how to set up a company in Finland, and it seems to be a very simple process by what you have stated. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to Mr. Deepak Padaki, who's Executive Vice President, Group Head Strategy, M&A, and Chief Officer for Infosys. He will talk about a case study of investing in Finland. Mr. Padaki is the Executive Vice President, as I said. His responsibilities include long-term strategic planning for the organization and the management of cross-functional strategic initiatives. As a Chief Risk Officer, he is responsible for defining the company's risk management framework, identifying and monitoring the risks to the successful execution of the company's strategy and operations. He oversees the Infosys Innovation Fund and invests in the startup ecosystem globally. He's a member of the board of Infosys Software Subsidies. Over to you, Mr. Padaki.
Thank you, Mr. Kumar. Hopefully I'm audible and my screen is visible. Very good.
Very clear.
So lovely to be here and to be part of this presentation. And just a few words. Infosys, as many of you would know, is a large IT services company. And then we are today in, I'm sorry, yeah. And today we are present in multiple countries across the world. And what I want to present today is what we are doing in Finland, and especially an investment that we made in Finland. So to start with, this is what I'm going to cover. I think I want to talk a little bit about the context, which is the digital wave that's happening. And then I want to talk a little bit about the investment that we actually made in Finland in a company, and what has been our experience together after that. So I'm sure everybody knows that many companies across the world are on this journey to digitally transform themselves. And digital transformation is one of the key pillars of Infosys strategy as well, where we are looking at how we can help our clients across the world to adopt new digital technologies in a way that transforms their business. And so for a few years now, we have gone on this path of building our own capabilities on various digital technologies, building intellectual property.
Deepak, we cannot see your slides.
Oh, hang on a second. Is this okay, Yuka?
It's okay, and I must say that Infosys is a very fast company. I got a message from your colleague that could you tell Deepak? Yeah, cool.
Okay, here we go. Yeah, so as I was saying, digital strategies is one of the pillars of Infosys strategy to build capabilities in digital technologies. Because what we are trying to do is help our clients who come from many industries, to transform their business, to become more agile, to become more customer-centric, to bring in innovation and so on. Another big pillar of our strategy has been specifically around a localization theme. So one of the things we realized is that if you want to implement digital technologies, then you need three things. One of them is, of course, a very design-led approach, right? You need people who can think fresh and not bring the sentiment and the emotion of the past into it. So a design-led approach is very important when you're trying to implement digital. The second, of course, is competence on the digital technologies. And especially one of the areas we were looking at is software as a service kind of applications on the cloud, where this requires capabilities around specific software technologies that are there in the world. It also needs a lot of local relevance. So when you're trying to implement digital, it's important to understand the context of the customer's business, the customer's people. Sometimes culture plays an important piece because you're really trying to change a system, right? And the last thing I'll say, when you're trying to implement digital technologies, you need to be very practical. You need to be very objective, because you can't let emotion come in the way when you want to throw out something old and put in something new. It's very much like, changing your wardrobe all at once, right? So you can't have the emotion come in the way. You need to be very practical, very objective. And so we had embarked on this theme of localization, where we are trying to, create innovation hubs in the markets that we're present in. And in the 2018 timeframe, we had already started in a big way in the United States. And increasingly, we were looking at Europe as, where can we create these hubs where we can build up a workforce, build up capabilities that can then, address the needs of our clients around the world. So this was the context in which we entered 2018. And of course, we were looking for companies that we could partner with, companies that we could acquire across the world, which can help us on this dual theme of bringing digital capabilities, but also bring a very strong local flavor. And as we were looking around the world, we were so lucky that we came upon a company in Finland called Fluido. And this is, I'm talking about October 2018. And Fluido had already had, a very good run in the markets. In 2011, they started out as a leader in what is known as the Salesforce ecosystem. So this is specialty services focused on implementing a software called Salesforce that comes from the US, and it's in the customer relationship area, right? And Fluido had started to build this reputation across the world, and especially in Europe, about becoming a leader in this. And 2011, they had started By the time they got to 2012, they're already expanded into the 4 Nordic countries. In 2016, they were actually certified as a platinum partner with Salesforce, which shows the expertise that they had built up very, very quickly and the reach that they had. And by 2018, when we started talking to them, they were looking at how can they expand now beyond the Nordics and go into Europe. And I think Jukka and Lars both talked about how Finland can be a gateway into Europe. And here was Fluido trying to do this from within Finland itself, right? How fast they had expanded. And so they were looking for a partner as well who could give them the global scale, as well as we were looking for somebody who can then influence our markets and the demand there. So in October 2018, for a consideration of about $65 million that we put in, we acquired Fluido, which is now an Infosys company. And I think we were very impressed at that time with the high ambition and the high momentum that Fluido was already creating in the market. They were growing at about 50% CAGR, which was tremendous credibility to what we were trying to do there. So let me spend a few minutes on why Fluido, right? I think the first thing is, of course, the digital capabilities. As I mentioned, they had demonstrated this ability to scale. They had recognized public credentials. I think they were the largest Salesforce certified company in Europe. And that's a big achievement. Second thing is, for us, we started seeing a lot of high growth and a lot of demand for these services in our European customer base and European markets. So we felt it's the right combination from a capability perspective. And then, one of the things that we could bring to the table here was how we had a global reach. We had customers, of course, we had customers in the Nordics. We weren't so big in Finland at that time. We did have a few big customers. But, across Europe, we had great client base, which we could then marry with the capabilities that Fluido was bringing, right? So it seemed very, very strategic. The client relations that we could bring in, the industry expertise that we could bring in. And then we also saw an opportunity how we can now look at combining a Finnish presence with an India presence. So that suddenly gives you a lot of scale, right? And one of the things that Fluido brought in was very strong training around Salesforce, and we thought we could use that as well. So very strong capabilities, I think, was the first reason. The second was the local expertise. And like I mentioned, they were already a certified partner, the largest one and most recognized one in the region. So very strong local presence, understanding of the cultures of our clients in the region, and also across, not just in Finland, but also in the other Nordic countries. And this was a line I picked up when I remember talking to them initially, that they said they lived and breathed customer success, right? So a very client-centric kind of mentality and professionalism, which was very, very nice for us to see. And then we started looking at, if Fluido's ambition was to expand out of the Nordics and into the continental Europe, and we wanted to do something similar of, growing in Europe, can we in some way use Fluido as a beachhead rather than Infosys going directly after the Salesforce ecosystem in the Nordic region, right? So I think this local expertise, the local presence, the availability of experts in a particular technology locally was a very big factor about why we picked Fluido. And then the third piece really is about culture. And, what I want to say is, throughout the process of talking to them and engaging in the transaction and negotiation, the things that stood out was trust, transparency. Right in the beginning, they shared with us such details of their financials even before we had made an offer, which was, it's very, very heartening to see that kind of, transparency and trust. And that increased our confidence about what we could do here. We thought there's a good mix of cultural values, professional cultural values between what Fluido had and what Infosys was also has. So I think these were, if I have to summarize it, these were the three major reasons why we went after Fluido, and I'm very happy that we were able to acquire them. And they've been a great partner once they've come in. And some of the photographs you see there at the bottom is actually our Fluido employees, and I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go forward. So what's been the journey so far? That's 2018. So, we're almost in the third year now of Fluido and Infosys. And, I can say very clearly that in the last 2.5 years, the business of Fluido has grown phenomenally. They had their best ever quarter in their history last quarter, which is just ended in December. And, they've grown not just in Finland, but across Europe, right? Today, we are using them in Germany, in the UK, and soon, we'll start expanding in Benelux. Of course, in the Nordic countries, every one of them, the business has grown. So that's a great testament that the hypothesis was right. Combining their strong capabilities with our global reach has really worked out well for us. The second thing is that it's not just about taking them to our existing clients. The proposition of the two companies coming together has actually resulted in many, many new clients coming on board for Infosys Group, right? So that's a great factor. The third one is, I would say, and the Fluido people would say this, that earlier as a small company, they were in the size of their transactions and their engagements were kind of limited. But the moment they've now partnered with the larger Infosys team, the size of each of their transactions and engagements has actually grown, right? And as everybody in business would know, this is good both from a stickiness perspective with the clients, as well as what it does for your profits. So larger deals, stronger relationships with clients has been a great outcome of the journey together. And then fourth is growing talent. It's one thing when you're small and you're struggling to recruit people because the market is so hard. And then suddenly you have a larger partner with you who can bring in resources. And so growing the talent base has been phenomenal, right? And we are doing this together both in Finland as well as in the greater European region. And finally, something that Fluido gave us was this training program in Salesforce. Since they were a specialist, since they had the certifications, what they have been able to do in order to train their people is something that today we are offering to all of the Infosys employees around the world, especially in India, right? So a lot of cross-border knowledge transfer that has happened. So in a nutshell, I think this journey together has been phenomenal. We've had such great success together, and we're very hopeful of the coming years when we can do more things together. But I think like Jukka's last slide, why Finland, right? And by the way, this is the Fluido team in Finland. And I want to go back to when we first got some information about this company through our advisors in the region. When they explained their management team, right? How you would usually put the CEO and what he has done, his experience and his biodata. The words at the bottom is what they had put for their people, right? So-and-so was a combat driver in the Finnish Navy. So-and-so was an Olympic gold medal sailor. By the way, these are all employees of Fluido, okay? So-and-so prefers to sleep outside. And this executive is a scuba and a skydiver but his feet is firmly on the ground. And one of the ladies in the group spent most of her free time working with kids' charities. And what came out of that, this really caught my attention as the head of M&A and strategy. They really, love their people. They really love their work life, but they also love their personal life. And they have a very great balance of the two, right? So there's a lot of purpose that they showed in how they are approaching their work and their life and the purpose of how they're addressing their clients. And I remember one of the lines in those early presentations when they said that Finnish people don't let their friends down, right? So there's that much of trust, and we saw that through the process. And I think especially in a services and people-based industry like ours, this is very, very important, right? And what's the emotional feel that you get from the people? I think the experience that I've had is Finland. Of course, I think the previous speaker spoke about it. It's such a digital savvy culture. Technology is in the blood. A very, very strong focus on education, as we saw in the training programs that they had for us. And then, the professional culture is also so good. The trust I spoke about, the practicality, and some of the things that sometimes when you look at an India-Finland combination, you might think is a challenge. but it's a good challenge because, they're very straightforward. They don't beat around the bush. If there's something to be said, they will say it. And, sometimes as an Indian professional culture, you have to adapt to that. Of course, Infosys, having worked with other Western geographies and cultures, has a different, is also very, very straightforward and saying it as it comes. But also, I think, things like professionalism, punctuality, these are great qualities to have when you're partnering with a Finnish company. And of course, I
Mr.
must
Padaki,
mention,
please.
the strong support that we get from Business Finland. I think we get a lot of help both on the governmental side in terms of movement of people, in terms of ideas. And now that we have a hub in Finland, we're really looking at how we can expand into the startup space and do more in Finland. So I will stop with that, and maybe we can take questions later. Back to you, Mr. Kumar.
Thank you very much, Mr. Padaki. Indeed, a very interesting case study. Of course, with a company like Infosys, I think wherever you go, it's always very interesting. You have such a huge global presence. Thank you. Our next, so Mr. Kunal Pandya is CEO of Encrypted Technologies. He's a serial entrepreneur, angel investor, and startup evangelist. He has helped build and scale up several businesses and products from the ground up. Apart from Encrypted, which is has a presence in Finland, he serves as an advisory and is on the board of several client companies. Over to you, Mr. Pandya.
Yeah, thank you, Vijay. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are, Kunal.
Okay, good. Thank you, everyone, for being part of this wonderful event. I always become very excited when it comes to talking about why we set up our base in Finland, as Finland being one of our, or rather our first outside office in Europe. So very excited, and thank you all for being here today. It's a pleasure talking to all of you, and I'm happy to be showcasing our company, Encrypted Technologies, as one of the tech companies that is already set up and operational here in Finland. We had set up our subsidiary in Finland in 2018, and so far we remain very pleased with overall results that we have got, and the overall with the business prospects that Finland and the Nordic markets have to offer for software and IT SMEs like ourselves. Just to brief you, you guys a little bit from where we come from. Encrypted is a small-scale tech company providing end-to-end tech solutions, especially to small to medium-scale enterprises and mainly to startups. So we have customers from different industry segments, but our core focus is edtech, e-commerce, automobiles, smart transportation, online communities, travel tech, and online accommodations. Obviously, the latter, unfortunately, getting a little bit hit due to this ongoing corona situation, but thankfully, the other sectors have had a great run, and travel tech and online accommodations are also now coming back slowly, which is good news. We also started working with in the gaming sector after we entered into Finland, as Finland has some of the most promising gaming companies, and a couple of them are our customers now, and we are very pleased to see the kind of innovations that they bring in. Talking about our team size, we have about 200 employees working with us across 3 offices in India, and then outside India through our subsidiaries in Finland, US, and the UK. Almost everyone is working from home right now. So we also work with startups of almost any cluster and segment, as long as they have a tech or software requirement and are in need of a tech partner at early stage. We have in-house teams of business analysts and all sort of tech guys, typically the mobile React developers to Python, no code, blockchain, etc., to support any scale of development. As a company, Encrypted and I personally are also invested in in several of our customer companies, wherein we also invest during their early stage rounds, mainly during the seed round, and provide our tech services at discount in exchange for equity in the company. We have seen that through this engagement model, we are able to provide quality resources, investment, and our
Mr.
tech
Pandya,
services.
are you, Mr. Pandya,
Yeah.
are you giving a presentation or just speaking?
No, I'm just speaking.
We are not able to see the presentation. Okay, fine.
Yeah, no,
Thanks.
I just have one slide which I will show at the towards the last, but I
Fine.
don't have any presentation right now.
Sure, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so just repeating a little bit of what I just mentioned. As a company, Encrypted and I personally are also invested in several of our customer companies, wherein we also invest during their early stage rounds, especially during the seed round, and provide our tech services at discount in exchange for equity in the company. We have seen that through this engagement model, we are able to provide quality resources, services at almost 50% of the cost that the customers otherwise would have through the other traditional models. And happily, we are invested in several companies. A couple of them are in Finland through this model. One of them is a gaming company. We are invested. We made a very small investment early on, and then we topped up with a follow-on round during the Series A, which happened in early 2020. And we are very happy with the investment that we have made in these companies, and we continue being their, one of the tech partners also. So it's kind of a win-win model that we have seen. It's working very well for us and for our customers, especially in the Nordic market. We also work very closely with some ecosystem and channel partners across countries where we are active, including, of course, Finland, to provide this extended support to our customers who would have otherwise need for such services from our partners, such as accounting, legal, and other governmental support and other channel partners. We found Finland to be very attractive from the startup point of view, as the ecosystem here is very mature. Strong establishments and government bodies such as Business Finland here, and Helsinki Business Hub also is another government body that was very helpful to us initially when we were setting up our subsidiary there. Also, the embassy have been very helpful when it came to the initial establishment. Also, they were very helpful in helping us connect with other important players and channel partners, and also to show the kind of culture which is around there, which attracted us the most. Now we already had a satellite office in Denver, US, already before Finland became our first destination in Europe. At the time, people were asking us why Finland. I mean, apart from India, normally companies would first go, especially small to medium scale companies like us. First, you would go to US, UK, Germany, and this kind of markets. But we went straight to Finland, of course. Apart from the satellite company we had in US at the time. So we were asked this question many times, why Finland? And our answer was very obvious, is you have to visit once. Of course, nowadays I'm sure some virtual visits can be made available by Business Finland or maybe some other tech channel partners here. But at that time, we were exploring other regional markets also, such as the DACH region and Germany in particular. The Netherlands and Spain were some of our primary markets we were planning to set up before deciding on setting up our subsidiary in Finland. So for us, this seemed like the right investment opportunity from multiple point of views. First, it was sort of unexplored from SME software and IT startup services point of view. So although Finland in itself as a market is small, it offered us the right foundation to then venture into other Nordic markets as well, as we would then have the right competitive advantage because the kind of services and the engagement model that we have. Of course, we have a good presence of large Indian IT companies such as Infosys, Tech Mahindra, etc. are there. But we found that the small scale industries are kind of unexplored, and obviously it seemed like a good match for us. And obviously, then we saw the great demand for the kind of engagement model, and the manpower is also very talented, very friendly. Um, um, Finnish people are, and everybody in general here is simply very friendly. You can see from the culture, they're very straightforward, like what Deepak mentioned. We also felt that. It's unlike what you see in India, so a little bit of cultural exercise would be required, especially if you don't have um, any cultural interaction with any Nordic counterparts early on. Then some cultural exercise would be required, which I think is for the good, for the benefit only, because there are only good points that you will get from this interaction. Um, the people are friendly. Technology, like Deepak mentioned, is in their blood. So that's very relieving as us being also an IT company. Um, from emotional point of view, on a very frank note, sometimes initially the Finns might look like they are emotionless, but over time we learned that that's not the case. It's just the way the culture is built up. But especially for us, like Indians, we are very expressive, and we have very strong emotions when it comes to business. But when you go to Finland, it's the opposite. But that doesn't mean that the integrity is not there. It's very strong. Once the relationships start building, they will value the relationships more than business. And this is normally the same trade with everybody. So which is again very relaxing to know. During our initial exploration visits, also we met people from different local government bodies. Business Finland in particular and the embassy have been very supportive and helped us connect with the right channel partners. And they gave us a very straightforward yet very broad perspective in order to decide whether to set up there or not. And naturally, being a smaller company like ourselves, we had to explore then on our own also when it came to accounting practices, legal advisory, etc. As of course, we also heard from Bird and Bird, team here about some very fundamental taxation and employment laws. But obviously, if you are planning to set up, you want to have one meeting about your business plan and the kind of runway you want to have before deciding. But in general, we have found the laws and the legalities to be very friendly. It's very straightforward. Everything is written, so it's just a matter of exercising a little bit before you get used to it. But for us, of course, initially it took us a little bit of time to explore this. But towards the end, thanks to the friendly culture and the kind of ecosystem support that is available, it became very easy for us to still continue operative. On the other side of the story, the market is comparatively small and potential customers would have very specific needs. So we had to figure out very early that until we have a specific cure to their identified problems, we won't be able to sell our story. So quality often outshines cost in Finland. That is what we have learned. And this is generally what we have seen in overall Nordic market as well. But in Finland in particular, this is very strong sentiment, something not very likely in many other regions where the cost factor takes priority in the decision-making process. For example, in some parts in South Asia. So it would be advisable to go through your own business plan, whether you simply want to sell or you also have some R&D plans, and talk to guys from Business Finland. Yuka is of course very helpful, and there are many other key players who can guide at the early stage to figure out what could be the right path and roadway for your company to set up. I would also be happy to help answer any similar questions you might have. Separately, of course, the OPEX in Finland we have found would be a little bit on the higher end. At least that is what we have seen compared to some other markets where we are active, such as, for example, Spain or even US. But that is very handsomely compensated when you have the right business model and practices in place. And with the right guidance, of course, this becomes very easy early on in your journey. So yeah, that's our story. We remain very happy and active with our investment in Finland directly with our own setup there, and through a couple of small investments we have made in a couple of companies in Finland. We remain very happy, and I thank you all for taking your time and listening to me, and would be very happy to take any questions you have later on. And my big congratulations and thanks to Business Finland, World Trade Center, the Embassy, and SaaS partners for organizing this wonderful and successful event. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Mr. Pandya. Indeed, it was very interesting to listen to your experience of doing business in Finland. And I think it would be a very interesting lesson for a lot of medium-sized companies, not necessarily the big ones like Infosys, especially the small and medium-sized companies who are interested to go global. Thank you very much. I'd like to start the Q&A first by asking Mr. Alex Kochi, Director of SES Partners. Do you have any questions, Alex, on especially the legal aspects of doing business in Finland? Could you kickstart that?
Not really, Vijay. I think we are good to proceed further.
Do you have any specific questions to ask of the panelists, especially regarding the legal aspects?
Yeah, I mean, one question probably to Maria is there, how about the capital repatriation back from Finland? Are there restrictions in taking money back from Finland?
Hello, yes. There are no restrictions on taking money back from Finland. It is, of course, always, it always is a little bit of an interplay between, let's say, a separate local regulations. So that's something that is probably also good to think about. In other words, locally, how does that look in India? How does that look where you are established? But from a Finnish regulatory standpoint, no.
Thank you.
Any other questions, Alex?
Nothing specific, Vijay, in the paucity of time. I may have a number, but sorry.
Okay. No, before Alex gives his welcome his closing remarks, I have a few questions. I noticed that at least I didn't see anybody mentioning about opening a bank account in Finland, because how difficult or how easy is it to open a bank account? In some European countries, I know it's not easy. It takes months together. So what is the experience in Finland?
Markus, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, I can answer. It shouldn't be taking many months. However, due to the banking regulation, it has been increased lately. It might take some time, and it varies from different banks. They have quite different conditions for the opening a bank account. However, it's difficult, but it's not as difficult as I assume you might have in there. So it's not many months, but it cannot be opened up in a day or two, I would say, without prior contacts or bank accounts to the same bank.
Okay.
Yeah, Vijay, I can quickly answer that from my point of view. Sure. Based on our own experience, we found it very, very straightforward and easy. Of course, I don't know, maybe Maria or Bird and Bird can guide us more on this. But we had to open the bank account before the company could be registered in Finland. So that is the first point of contact you would have when you open up a subsidiary there. For us, it took about 10 days, I think, couple of weeks before we had the bank account operational. And then everything, the rest of the part is pretty straightforward and smooth. So this is your first point of contact. And personally, we have seen this is, again, very hassle-free compared to some other countries in Europe. Like in Germany, of course, it's a very tedious process. It takes over a month, but we found this very easy comparatively. But of course, it can't be done in a couple of days, especially being a foreign-owned subsidiary. They have some time, and of course, again, it differs from bank to bank. So it also depends on which bank you're going to.
Completely agree. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Yeah. No. Go ahead.
One of the other things that I missed in the presentation, by the various people, is that there was almost entirely focused on the IT technology, electronics, digital industry. But there are a number of companies that were registered with us, are medium-sized companies who make engineering components, companies based in Pune, companies based in Chennai, South India, and in the manufacturing, and they supply to a lot of big companies in Europe. What would be the manufacturing environment for a medium-sized company to set up a manufacturing unit in Finland? Does Finland encourage manufacturing, or like some European countries actually discourages it? Or how easy, or also how costly would it be to set up a manufacturing unit in Finland to cater to Europe?
Lars, would you like to take that?
Yeah, I mean, as you know, that the whole thing with manufacturing today is changing. You see more and more automatic robotics into this. It gets very high skilled requirements looking into manufacturing. So it depends a little bit what kind of manufacturing you refer to. The good thing, at least from a Finnish perspective, is of course that the people cost will not be so important any longer, because the kind of manufacturing is getting more and more effective and automized. And we've been working a couple of cases, try actually to get manufacturing, but also assembly factories to Finland. And I talked about a little bit one of the cases there, like within the battery side, and that is, for instance, a very highly automated and complicated kind of manufacturing. So it's difficult to say, but it's moving in a direction where it actually are moving to more automated kind of solutions, which is good for us perspective.
Okay, thank you. I think you mentioned also about an event called a Slush for the startup industry. Now, Slush, typically, in which month of the year does this event take place? Because there could be many Indian startups that might be interested to participate in Slush.
The whole idea behind Slush is that it's organized during the worst possible time of the year. When it doesn't make any sense to come to Helsinki, when it's dark, it's cold, and there's slush on the ground. So then you have nothing else to do besides, hang around other startup geeks and talk to investors. So late November, early December.
Oh, okay.
May I also talk about another little bit smaller but very special event that takes place on a yearly basis in Finland, and that is something called polar bear pitching, and that is a very interesting taking part of in the northern part of the Finland, and it goes like this: that you as a company in Finland who wants to pitch your company to investors, you need to step down into an ice open up a hole in the ice and step in there. And as long as you can stay in the cold water, you are allowed to pitch to the investor. So this is something that all are welcome to try as well.
Okay, thank you. A very, very interesting way of pitching, I must say. Survival of the fittest. Just, one more question. So Bird and Bird, if there is an Indian company that is looking at, say, taking over a company in Finland, would Bird and Bird be having information on companies that are for sale in Finland for an acquisition or a merger? Or how does one get that kind of information?
Yes, that's a very good question. We do have a conversation about these things, and we do sort of compile information informally, of course. But yes, we are happy to make some introductions on that. And there's, let's say that we are connected to certain databases and information flows when it comes to for instance, invitations to tender, invitations to make investments, and we're happy to share that information. Yes.
There's one question from the audience. It asks whether, what is the minimum investment required for investing in Finland?
That's probably something that we can take as well. So that would be probably €0. So there was a change in legislation when it comes to investment. There is no longer a need for a minimum share capital, if that is the question. So in order to establish a company, you no longer need to put in a certain amount of euros into that company on day one. Obviously, when it comes to, let's say, what is feasible from a working capital perspective and from, let's say, the perspective of getting the company off the ground in Finland, I think there maybe our colleagues at Business Finland are better to answer.
Thank you. I think this has been a very, very interesting session with some excellent speakers, excellent experience, great knowledge, and something very, very useful. I noticed that Mr. Puneet Thakur from Investor Finland has already been very active in answering many of the questions. So those of you who have participated in this and need further information are welcome to call Mr. Puneet Thakur or to contact us at SAS Partners, and we'll put you in touch with the right person. Now I request Alex Kochi, Director of SAS Partners, to give the concluding remarks as well as the vote of thanks. Thank you. Thank you very much to everybody.
Thank you, Vijay. I hope I'm audible.
Very clear.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Here we are concluding the third session of Internationalization series. SAS Partners is organizing along with the World Trade Center of Bengaluru, Kochi, and Chennai. We were extremely fortunate to have Business Finland being a partner for this event with a strong focus on business and investment opportunities Finland can provide for the aspiring Indian businesses. SAS Partners is always in the forefront of promoting cross-border investments with India as a focal point. Since its inception in 2008, we have been an advisory partner for various governments, businesses, and entrepreneurs in their endeavor to conceiving, implementing, and managing path-breaking business ideas to successful organizations. As a professional advisory organization, we continue to promote India and India-bound investments for foreign companies, but it is our endeavor to conceptualize and implement innovative platforms for foreign countries and regions in showcasing their investment attractiveness to growth-oriented Indian companies. Today, we have learned the fabulous story of Finland, along with the companies such as Infosys and Encrypted, who are literally living that story. Among everything what we learned today, one that stands out for me is a Finnish approach to innovation, not only in creating the new things, or new ways of doing things, but in identifying the needs of generations and work towards that, especially in the areas of bio and circular economy. There are numerous instances laid out by our respective speakers today, especially in the areas of ICT and energy. With that note, let me thank the Finnish ambassador to India, Her Excellency Ritua Konkurante, for her encouraging words and optimism about Indo-Finnish trade and investment relations. Madam, thank you very much for your presence and speech, especially pointing out the numerous reasons behind the Finnish happiness. Please let me also thank Mr. Jukka Holapa, Commercial Counselor and Country Director, India for Business Finland, who has been a phenomenal support for this event. Thank you, Jukka, for being here and explaining the various functions of Business Finland, especially the unique proposition in the offering, along with the funding edge for Business Finland. Please let me also recognize Mr. Lars Hagebris, Director International Operations in Business Finland, for your presence and explaining in detail the various attractiveness of Finnish ecosystem. Thank you, Lars. Now I certainly appreciate the vision-oriented action plan behind building startup-led vibrant entrepreneurial ecosystem by Finland. As always, nothing like hearing real-life examples and experiences. Please let me thank Mr. Deepak Padaki, Executive Vice President, Infosys, for taking us through the Fluido experience in detail. That is quite encouraging for companies looking at inorganic growth in new markets. And also let me thank Mr. Krunal Pandya for your experience with investments and the technology ecosystem. Thank you for being here, sharing your experience, validating the perceived rationales for Finland to be an attractive destination for investment. As I mentioned before, any business opportunity needs to be evaluated in conjunction with the cost and ease of doing the business in that geography. Maria and Marcus from Bird & Bird have made an excellent coverage of the regulatory aspects of doing business in Finland. Thank you both for your lucid explanations and conversation. I had to especially thank two of our mentors, Dr. Bose Nair from World Trade Center and Mr. Vijay Kumar, who are the pillars of this particular internationalization platform. Thank you for your continuous guidance and presence. Let me also thank our co-organizers, Business Finland, especially Mr. Puneet Thakur, who has picked up this thread at least a few months back and continued the discussion to materialize this particular event. Thank you, Puneet. Also, our friends in World Trade Center, especially Vivek Josh, the manager, and Sandeep, the coordinator, for your tireless efforts in making this event successful. I may not be doing justice to my word of thanks if I don't mention my colleagues and SAS partners, especially Sundari and Amrita, for putting all the efforts in reaching out to so many participants and ensuring that this event is happening with its full vigor. Please let me also thank all the participants for today for being very active and participative. We have received numerous questions, but we could pass it on to the speakers well in advance so they could cover. While we know that mere 2 hours will never be sufficient to explain everything, we certainly hope the session will instigate many of the participants to research further and make Finland as their future home in their international expansion. I'm very glad to note that we had over 500 interests in and registrations for this event through various platforms. People who are not participated or would want to take this discussion forward, as Vijay mentioned, please feel free to reach out to Puneet Thakur, Head of Invest, and I'm sure he'll be at your disposal for any further help to take the discussions forward and clarify your queries. Thank you once again, and wish you all a safe and good evening. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a nice evening. Goodbye.
Thank you all.